Hello, everyone. My name is Judy, and I'd like to share a bit of my journey with you. I'm 35 years old and work at a public relations firm in Los Angeles. I have chosen not to have children because I never felt prepared for motherhood, and looking back, I'm somewhat relieved by that decision. Life became quite chaotic after I married. It's difficult to admit, but I regret getting married. Just 3 years into my marriage, it had turned into a distressingly uncomfortable lifestyle. My parents, who live with me, have always been incredibly supportive and protective of my privacy, especially around strangers. They didn't deserve to be dragged through the difficulties that arose because of my decisions. I blame myself for the turmoil. I was unfortunately naive and too trusting, often seeing people who were kind to me as faultless. As I write this, my mind drifts back to the day I first met Raymond. It was a nondescript afternoon, marked by the typical sounds of a busy office, phones ringing and colleagues deeply engrossed in their work. I had just started at the agency, unaware that this ordinary day would start a series of events that would deeply intertwine our lives and lead me into the very mess I lament. Navigating the maze of cubicles on my first day, I noticed Raymond, a tall, bespectacled man radiating a calm confidence and warmth that naturally attracted others. Our paths crossed soon after during a brainstorming session for a client's campaign. "You're the newbie, right?" Raymond asked with a friendly smile. "Yes, I just joined. This place is wonderful and they even have a great coffee machine," I replied. "Yeah, this place shines up well. Many don't realize how chaotic it can get once everything is in full swing. You'll find yourself in countless meetings, some of which are just excuses for dull lectures, but luckily our boss is pretty relaxed. How often do we get breaks here?" he continued. "I'm hoping for frequent short breaks. My back can be unforgiving at times," I mentioned. "Oh, same here. There are comfortable sitting areas around, and you can shift spots whenever needed. The coffee machine is just over there. By the way, which cubicle are you in? It's always nice to meet someone new, and even better if you end up as desk neighbors," Raymond concluded, making me feel immediately more at ease in my new environment. Brian is the one situated in the first row, one seat from the left. As Brian and I started working closely, our collaboration on various projects allowed us to exchange ideas and dive into engaging, spirited discussions. I was particularly struck by his creativity and intelligence, and I admired his innovative thinking. We found a seamless rhythm working together, ideas flowing back and forth without effort. Our connection soon spilled over the office boundaries, revealing shared interests ranging from a mutual appreciation for indie music to a passion for uncovering the city's hidden spots. As weeks turned into months, what began as professional camaraderie evolved into a genuine friendship. One day, Brian approached me with an exciting offer. "Hey, I've got these 3 concert tickets. Want to check it out with me?" I hesitated. "Oh no, those underground ones? You know I'm claustrophobic. I'd probably faint from the crowd and the heat." Brian chuckled. "No, it's nothing like that. It's at a cafe nearby. One of my favorite indie artists will be performing. It'll be fun. Plus, we get a discount on food because of the tickets. Their gnocchi is fantastic. You'll love it." I was still uncertain. "I have a curfew, you know. My parents are strict about me being home by 11. And don't concerts start late?" "Well, technically this one starts at 9. We could head there around 8:45, grab some food, and chat before the show starts. I promise I'll have you back by 10:20, Brian reassured me. "Okay, fine, but if this turns out to be boring, you're paying for everything," I agreed, half joking. This simple arrangement brought us closer, allowing our friendship to deepen naturally without any pretenses or forced attachments. It was just 3 friends hanging out, with no expectations or hidden agendas. Our friendship took a significant turn during an impromptu after-work gathering. Amid the clinking of glasses and bursts of laughter, we found ourselves engrossed in a conversation that seemed to mute the world around us. As we delved into deeper topics, discussing our fears, dreams, and vulnerabilities, time seemed to pause. It was during these moments that I realized Raymond saw beyond the professional mask I wore at work. He understood the person beneath the surface, and I saw him too. His passion, his kindness, and the excitement in his eyes when he spoke about his dreams. Our connection had transformed from mere colleagues to something much more profound, sparked by genuine understanding and mutual respect. At that moment, I realized that our friendship was blossoming into something much deeper. Over the months, what began as a close bond slowly transformed into a more intimate connection. We found ourselves navigating the delicate steps of courtship, cherishing every laugh and glance exchanged. Each day, our relationship strengthened, and it became clear we were falling in love. Everything seemed wonderful, almost like a fairy tale. At least, that's how it felt at the time. However, there were aspects of Brian's behavior that raised concerns. One significant issue was his relationship with his mother. Whenever he spoke to her, his demeanor completely changed. He would use a babyish voice, giggle, and act childlike, which was shocking to witness. Brian seemed to craft a separate persona for his interactions with his mother. The things he shared openly with me, he concealed from her. It was unsettling. People who lead such dual lives often turn out to be unreliable, leaving you to question everything. One day, after he ended a call with his mother, my curiosity got the better of me, and I asked him about it. "Was that your mom? You seemed tense," I inquired. "Oh, she's just really caring," he explained with a forced smile. "She's worried about me living away from home, always asking if I'm eating well or if my job is too demanding. She loves me a lot and fears losing me, but I reassure her I'm fine." "That's sweet. Maybe we should invite her here. I'd love to meet her," I suggested. He hesitated, then replied, "We could, but I don't think she'd like to travel. She's not very well and lives alone in an old house. It's tough, but we manage. Maybe we could visit her instead?" "That sounds like a good plan," I agreed. When Brian eventually gathered the courage to confess his feelings for me, it was during a cozy evening at a local cafe. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, blending with our nervous anticipation. With trembling hands and heartfelt vulnerability, he declared his love for me. His confession left me overwhelmed. The realization that Brian was juggling two different worlds and was now pulling me into them was daunting. He even decided to move in with me, intensifying everything. My emotions were a mix of joy, nervousness, excitement, and fear, all swirling together as we ventured into this new chapter of our lives. Brian and my family got along well, and he even embraced the idea of taking my last name, a gesture that meant a lot to me. He had lived with his mother in San Jose until he secured a job and settled here. His apartment was costly, so he seemed quite eager to move in with me. Interestingly, he never invited me to his mother's place, claiming it was too run down and I wouldn't like it. It felt like he was trying his best to keep me hidden from her. "I understand, dear, but we need to consider everything. If you're going to marry me and move in, wouldn't that be difficult for your mother? You live with her, don't you?" I asked him one evening. "Yes, but I think it wouldn't be a good place for us to stay." "I want you to be comfortable and happy," Brian replied earnestly. "My parents are quite understanding and wouldn't mind. But are you okay with them joining us occasionally? They worry about me forgetting them, so I often spend weekends with them. I've been so busy with work lately, coming home exhausted. We used to have dinner together, but now I often eat alone or grab something outside," I explained, trying to gauge his feelings about integrating our lives more fully. "I understand, love, and it's all right. "Don't worry so much, I'm here," Brian reassured me. "And about my mom, I'll make time for her when you're out with your family. I can visit her then. We're a team, right? We can make anything work if we put our minds to it." Our wedding day was simple, not marked by extravagance, but by a spectrum of emotions. As I stood at the altar looking into Brian's eyes, I recognized in him not only my partner and confidant, but also my best friend. However, I couldn't ignore the undercurrents of his secretive demeanor, especially his intense devotion to his mother and his tendency to hide his true self. At times, I wondered about the authenticity of his personas, the one he showed me and the one he reserved for his mother. As the evening unfolded, marking our transition from colleagues to friends, and now to husband and wife, I sensed a subtle shift. Our marriage, though initiated with dreams and hopes, began to settle into a pattern that felt surprisingly mundane. From the excitement of our wedding vows to support each other through every challenge, our day-to-day life gradually took on a rhythm that seemed, at best, unremarkable and at times outright boring. This realization was a sharp turn from the idyllic vision we had cherished. We embarked on this marital journey filled with anticipation, but as we navigated our shared life, the grandeur of our dreams contrasted sharply with the reality of a simple, sometimes monotonous existence. Yet, despite these challenges, our commitment remained strong. We were determined to support each other and make our marriage work, recognizing that the path to fulfillment often involves navigating the ordinary moments together. As Raymond was organizing his move from his apartment, I decided it was a good time to have a heart-to-heart with my parents about him joining our household. "So, how's everything going with Raymond?" my mother asked. "It's going well, but sometimes I can't shake the feeling that something's not quite right," I admitted. "Raymond is incredibly talented, genuinely kind, and excels at his job. We share so many interests, but there's also an unusual side to him that surfaces," my father chimed in, concern lining his face. "I've mentioned before that I think there's something off about him. He's smart, sure, but there's something about his eyes, and sometimes he acts so childishly, it's strange." "Let's not jump to conclusions," my mother cautioned, turning back to me. "Tell us more about these different sides of him." "You're both right to some extent. He does seem to have multiple facets to his personality. At work, he's relaxed and jovial, but around his mother, there's a noticeable shift. He becomes very different, almost subservient," I explained. "He's a typical mama's boy then," my father remarked, not unkindly. "He's an only child and his mother's a divorcee, right? It's not that surprising." "But I haven't even met her," I said, feeling frustrated. "I've suggested it multiple times, but he always finds an excuse. He claims she's ill and dislikes being around people." "That's nonsense," my mother said sharply. "You are his wife now. Meeting the family is a basic courtesy. And another thing, he wants to move in with us, bringing all his belongings. Why doesn't he want you to move into his place instead? He says his apartment isn't nice enough and doesn't want me to feel uncomfortable there," I replied, trying to stay neutral despite the growing unease. "That sounds suspicious," my father concluded thoughtfully. In the early days of our marriage, it became increasingly clear how often Raymond would seek his mother's approval before making any significant decisions, even consulting her over trivial matters. It seemed her opinions often outweighed mine, which was troubling. At first, I tried to overlook it, attributing it to their close bond. But as time passed, I realized it was more complex than that. Deborah, Raymond's mother, had always been a dominant influence in his life, and her presence was becoming an unspoken barrier between us. Deborah raised Raymond as a single mother and deeply instilled in him a profound sense of loyalty and duty towards her. As time passed, it became evident that Raymond felt a compelling responsibility to maintain her happiness and consistently sought her approval. Over the years, I increasingly found myself relegated to a secondary role in Raymond's life. Our shared aspirations and decisions often had to accommodate Deborah's preferences, whether it was choosing a paint color for our living room or selecting a vacation spot. Deborah's opinions always seemed to take precedence, leaving me feeling more like an outsider than a partner in my marriage, constantly eclipsed by her overbearing influence. Whenever I tried to address this dynamic, I faced significant pushback from both Raymond and Deborah. They perceived their close bond as a beautiful expression of love and devotion, while I viewed it as an unhealthy obsession that was gradually undermining our relationship. "Raymond, we're still going on that trip to France for our honeymoon, right?" I would ask, seeking reassurance. "Yes, don't worry. I'll be booking the tickets soon. Mom's fine. I just took her to the doctor. She's stable," Raymond would respond, trying to alleviate my concerns. However, it became apparent that Deborah harbored a strong dislike for me, and she did not shy away from manipulating her son to drive a wedge between us. Initially, I dismissed her behavior as typical mother-in-law antics, hoping things would improve over time. But as the months unfolded, her tactics became increasingly calculated and harmful. She would call Raymond, subtly belittling me, questioning my qualities as a wife, and casting doubts about my character. Deborah's disapproval cast a shadow over our marriage, and it was disheartening to see how easily she could influence Raymond's opinions and emotions. She was adept at exploiting his vulnerabilities, using guilt and manipulation to undermine our relationship. Whenever we encountered a disagreement or a challenge, she was there, whispering toxic doubts into his ear, sowing seeds of discontent and dissatisfaction. The atmosphere became increasingly toxic, leaving me feeling isolated and powerless. I struggled to stay composed and strong for the sake of our marriage, but the relentless nature of Deborah's campaign against me severely impacted my emotional health. I constantly doubted my self-worth and wondered if I would ever be sufficient to counteract her pervasive influence. One particular instance that stands out is when Deborah called Raymond's phone, and I could hear the veiled criticisms in her voice, each word designed to erode my place in his life. This relentless intrusion not only strained our relationship, but also left me questioning whether our love could truly withstand the formidable force of Deborah's will. While Raymond was in the bathroom, his phone rang, and I saw it as an opportunity to have a direct conversation with Deborah, his mother. I answered the call. "Hello, this is Raymond's wife." "Oh, the one who took my son away. Why do you have his phone?" came her sharp response. "I don't want any trouble. I just want to know if my son ever talks about me to you," she added somewhat defensively. "Yes, he does talk about you," I replied, trying to keep the conversation civil. "You think I manipulated him to stay with me, but Raymond chose this on his own. He often visits you. I've never tried to sway him with my property, money, or looks." Deborah scoffed. "I always told my son not to fall for girls like you, but you bewitched him." "Look, I love your son, and I only want us to understand each other better. I always encourage him to talk about you," I countered calmly. Deborah ended the call with a sound of disgust. It was clear that this conversation was going nowhere. Our planned trip to France was subsequently canceled, not due to family drama, but because my job required me to embark on a business trip to Japan for a collaboration with one of our digital marketing firms. I apologized to Raymond for the change in plans, and surprisingly, he seemed okay with it, telling me to have fun and to call him occasionally. I was disappointed about our trip being canceled, but Raymond didn't appear to be affected at all. It made me wonder if he was really okay or just suppressing his true feelings. I assured him I would return in a month. On the day I left, my parents came to see me off, but Raymond was absent. He later explained that he had to take his mother to the hospital in an emergency and felt bad for not being there to say goodbye. I didn't press the matter. The business trip to Japan went well, and I managed to video call Raymond occasionally, though he always seemed rushed. At first, I didn't think much of it, assuming he was just busy. However, during a call with my parents, I learned something unsettling. He's been around, but he hardly talks to us. He moved in here permanently after you left. He doesn't spend much time with us, just simple hellos and goodbyes, they shared. Is he still going to the office? What else has he been doing? I inquired, trying to piece things together. Well, he does go out and comes back around dinner time. He's brought some stuff with him, like game consoles, a stereo, a camera stand, and all that. But he's mostly locked up in his room, working or talking late at night with someone, maybe his mom. I don't know, they explained. The pieces started to fit together in a disheartening picture. Raymond's aloofness and the secretive late-night conversations hinted at a deeper issue than just his busy schedule. My return home would undoubtedly require confronting these growing concerns head-on. One day, a few weeks before my scheduled return to California, I received a distressing call from my mother. She was inconsolable, sobbing heavily. I urged her to calm down and tell me what had happened. Through her tears, she explained that Raymond had brought his mother over to our house and then, shockingly, locked my parents out. They had gone to dinner, just the three of them, and Raymond seized the opportunity to take over the house, leaving my parents to find temporary refuge in a motel for the night. I was livid, feeling like a ticking time bomb, my heart racing with anger and disbelief. I knew Raymond needed to be taught a lesson. My neighbors, who were very fond of my parents, were outraged when I called them. I reported the incident to the police, but they dismissed it as a trivial family matter and said I needed to be present to press any charges. Determined, I booked the next available flight home, which took 2 grueling days. By the time I arrived, it was midnight, but I was prepared. I always carried a spare key. I called some neighbors, and they were shocked that my parents hadn't come to them earlier for help. Together, we marched to my house. I unlocked the door and found Raymond lounging on the couch, watching TV and laughing with his mother. Overcome with fury, I stormed in and grabbed Raymond by the collar, shaking him as my anger poured out. My neighbor restrained his mother to prevent her from interfering. It was a moment of intense emotional release. Raymond needed to understand the severity of his actions. But babe, look, I can explain. My mother was ill and I feared she would die. Your parents were against us, Raymond stammered, trying to justify his behavior. You are despicable. How dare you lock my family out of their home and think you could get away with it? I don't care about your excuses, I yelled back at him, my rage unabated. In my fury, I might have escalated further had my neighbors not helped to calm me down. We called the police again, and this time they took Raymond and his mother in for further questioning. While they were gone, I threw out all of Raymond's belongings, his gaming console, his posters, everything. He had betrayed my trust and respect, and I had no sympathy left for him. The police later told me that Raymond had secretly been caring for his mother in our house, making her stay comfortable while displacing my parents. Following this ordeal, I filed for divorce and demanded that Raymond compensate me and my parents monthly as a punishment for his deceit and for taking over our property. This drastic step was necessary to reclaim our home and our dignity from someone who had shown such disregard for our family's well-being. After the unsettling revelations and confrontations, I made the decision that Raymond had to leave and return to San Jose with his mother. His presence in our home was no longer tolerable. I had reached a point where his financial security was irrelevant to me. His deceitful and despicable behavior had severed all ties of trust and respect between us. In response to the ordeal, I took proactive measures to secure our home. I installed surveillance cameras throughout the property and upgraded our security systems to ensure there would be no further unwelcome surprises or any underhanded actions from him. Since then, I've adopted a cautious approach in my personal and professional relationships. I now ensure that anyone I meet is completely transparent about themselves before I consider moving forward in any capacity. This ordeal taught me the importance of clarity and honesty from the outset. Furthermore, I changed my job to a remote position, which has been beneficial in many ways. Working from home allows me to keep a closer eye on the house and ensure everything is secure while we recover from the recent upheavals. It's a relief to have control over my environment and to be able to protect my family's safety and peace of mind. My family is now doing well. We have managed to restore our sense of normalcy and security. We are content for the time being and have taken this experience as a significant lesson in vigilance and the importance of setting boundaries. This challenging time has taught us the value of unity and resilience in the face of deceit and betrayal.